call to order the meeting of Monday, April the 9th. If the clerk would please read the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz. Councilmember Warden.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here. You have before you the minutes from the regular meeting of March 26. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Archibald, is there any additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes will stand as submitted. We have 3 presentations tonight. If the clerk would please read the first one.
Representatives on behalf of the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police will present the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission Award to the Port Huron Police Department.
Good evening. Chief, if you'd step up here also, we'd appreciate that. Mayor, city officials, council members, thank you for having us here. We're honored to be here. My name's Robert Stevenson. I'm the executive director with the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. Joining me up here is the current president of the association, Chief Cliff Black from Midland, retired Chief Neil Rosso, who some people recognize from his time that he served here at Port Huron.
You sure? It is. I said, is that his brother? Well, it looks good. It looks good. It looks seasoned.
Here tonight representing the 1,200 members of our association to present the accreditation award to the Port Huron Police Department. This is quite an accomplishment. If I could frame this and explain a little bit about the demographics of police departments in the state, it might give you a greater appreciation for just what your police department and what your chief has accomplished. In the state of Michigan, there are approximately 600 police entities, of which 400 are municipal police agencies. Of those 400 police agencies, 6 have attained accreditation with our association to date. Of those 6 that have attained accreditation so far to date, only 3 of those departments are also CLIA certified. And your department is one of 3 in the entire state of Michigan that have attained both the accreditation of CLIA and now the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. I think sometimes when you're surrounded by excellence, you just get used to it. And we've all come in from various parts of the state to reinforce the excellent police department that you have here and the tremendous amount of work that they've done to attain this accreditation. And I'm going to turn this over to Neil Rosso, who is the accreditation program manager, to go into a little bit more about what your department has accomplished. Neil?
Thank you. Mayor, Council, Mr. Freed, it's certainly an honor for me to be here. I want to make it very clear that we are not the same as CLIA. We were specifically designed our accreditation for law enforcement in this state. So what I mean by that is we have 105 standards, and the Port Huron Police Department had to take their written directives or policies and weave it through those 105 standards. It required a totally different, totally separate on-site and a setup for that. So because they were CLIA, that's a big deal because it was a big deal when I was here, but this is a totally different thing that we set out to do. So it's always neat to go places and present this award and let the people in the community know how good their police department is. And it's certainly very much a privilege for me to come here because not only did I spend time here, but I live in this city, so it's a big deal for me. So with that, President Cliff Block.
And I'm going to step back and just say one other thing. When we first started this program and envisioned the program, Chief Baker was very instrumental in helping us set that up, and also for our assessors. He's been involved in this program to help train the assessors that are going around to other police agencies in the state. So it's not just a matter of the accreditation that they attain. They've also been involved in this and helped to raise the bar, if you will, around the state. And for that, I appreciate that, Chief. Thank you. With that,
Madam Mayor, members of council, Mr. Freed, it's my honor as the president of the association to present the certificate. To all who see the certificate, know that the Port Huron Police Department, having voluntarily complied with the standards established by the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, deemed essential for the delivery of professional police services and the protection of the community, is hereby awarded the Certificate of Accreditation, effective as of this 8th day of February in the year of 2018, for a term of 3 years. Again, this is quite the accomplishment, and it does show the commitment and excellence that you have in your police department, having both CALEA and also the MSCP accreditation now. So congratulations. Steve.
Before I say anything, Gail, would you come on up front, please? Put you on the spot. Mayor Rep, Pro Tem Mayor Ashford, Council, City Manager Freed, let me first say I'm very proud to be standing up here and accept this award. I believe very strongly in accreditation. We've been nationally accredited since 1995. It's been our brand. And when the state came forward, MACP stepped forward and said that they wanted a state accreditation process put in place, we jumped feet first into it and thought this is right up our alley, this is what we should be doing. Gail Kaczynski, I can't say enough about her. She's our accreditation manager. She is the person that put this together. She worked tirelessly every day and did a wonderful job. Our on-site went, I would say, flawlessly. I accept this award today on behalf of my staff. You have an excellent police department. We have excellent, hardworking men and women here that I can't say enough about, and that's why we were so successful in being able to hold this dual accreditation. So I'm very pleased and honored to be standing here representing the Port Huron Police Department and accepting this award from these fine gentlemen. I really do appreciate you guys coming up here. That means a lot. Thank you very much.
Wasn't that long a drive?
Pay for these guys. And let me end that by saying thank you to the council and to City Manager Freed for your support in these endeavors. It's not necessarily easy. It takes a lot of time and support from your leaders, and I really appreciate your support to get to the point we are today. Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Mayor Rep, excuse me, before you clap, Mayor Rep, I think this is such a great honor. Can't we just stand and give them a standing ovation? This is something you shouldn't take lightly. So let's stand. Can you join us and stand and giving them a round of applause, please?
Thank you.
Yes!
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're very proud of our police department. I think it's great recognition, so we should all be very proud of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your award. You did all the work.
Thank you.
And seeing as you're going to be up again next, you might as well just sit right there, right? I'll let the clerk announce it.
Police Chief Jeff Baker will present the annual Police Department report.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager Freed, it's my honor to stand in front of you today and present this annual report. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail in a second about, we have changed things up this year, but first of all, I'm going to go through this report. In respect of your time, I'm going to go through it rather quickly. If you have any questions at the end, feel free to answer, but much of what I'm going to show you at the beginning here is statistical information. One thing I want to tell you, and I have to repeat, you have a fantastic police department. The men and women of this police department work very hard, and the statistics you're going to see here, you're going to see a decrease in almost every category, and that is because of the hard work of the men and women of this police department. We first take a look at our calls for service. You'll see that there's a decrease from 2016 to 2017. In the second piece there is a decrease in the number of case reports that are actually filed. We run on calls. When we take a report, that's the second slide you see there. Juvenile and adult arrests also have decreased from 2016 by 17%. Homicides, this is one of those numbers. It's very difficult to do anything with up or down, but they've stayed the same from 2016 to 2017. Many of you remember that was the Lander case earlier this year, March of 2017. Criminal sexual conducts, again, those decrease. These are mostly Part 1 crimes that we've seen a decrease in. Robberies, once again, we see a decrease of 12%. Home invasions and burglaries, which we lump together, we've seen a decrease there of 24%. Auto theft, again, down 11%, and malicious destruction of property, another Part 1 crime. You'll see there's a very small decrease from last year. Charged assaults have decreased rather significantly, 6.2% down from 2016. There's a small increase here in larcenies, but it's so small it's almost, the difference right there is almost non-measurable. Arson's another significant drop from last year. We've seen a 64% increase. You will notice probably in the paper, you've seen some reports of arsons recently. Those ones are not in this slide because they happened in 2018, but the good news is we caught that guy. Now, there's a couple different occasions where he was lighting fires, and he's in custody, so he's answering for those particular incidents that he was involved in. Traffic accidents have increased slightly, just less than 0.5%. OWIs, proud to report, are down. And fatal accidents, they stayed the same. If you note those 2 fatal accidents, I don't know if you recall, but those were both motorcycle accidents. February, if I recall correctly, and I believe the end of May, both motorcycle accidents. Traffic violations are down by about 18%, and parking violations showed a slight increase from 2016. In 2017, we hired 4 new police officers. I think many of you have met these guys. These are fantastic police officers. We are so proud of the people we've been able to acquire here at the Port Huron Police Department. Officer Daly, Officer Baker, I think you guys will recognize them. They did our video. And Officer Robertson and Officer Witten. These are, again, I can't say enough about our new hires, just adding to the great men and women you have here at the Port Huron Police Department. Here's some initiatives that we're looking at in 2018. I'll be really brief. But as you guys know, you've heard us talk about the difficulties in getting or obtaining good qualified candidates. We think it's important that we have diversity in our police department, and in doing so, we thought it was important to invent or assemble a recruiting team back in late 2017, which we did. We have a number of different people from various places in the police department that can go out to the academies, they can go to the colleges, they can even get into the high schools and try to get these people interested not only in law enforcement but into working here at the Port Huron Police Department. As you guys know, we have an Explorer program and a cadet program that we try to feed into our officers. So this is what these folks do. They work on this regularly. Several times a month they're going out trying to bring in the best of the best into our agency, and it really has reflected in our last hires. They are really good people. We currently have 2 officers in our FTO program. That's our training program. It runs about 3.5 to 4 months. And I have up here 1 conditional offer of employment that's outstanding. That means we've offered that person a job. We're waiting for him to get out of the academy. Just prior to this council meeting tonight, I tendered a 2nd conditional offer of employment. So we have 2. We have 2 more people that we're looking at that are currently in the academy that we will likely hire at the end of the academy, which is in May. Which at the end of that, with retirements that are happening in the police department, we're still down 4. That's how important this recruiting piece is. I want you guys to be aware of how hard we're working to get good people in this police department. Touching on that same vein here, you've heard us talk about this youth academy. This is going to take place in June of 2018. We've had a lot of interest in it. We are really going to use this as a breeding ground for our Explorer program, our cadet program, and certainly our police department officers. We're all working on a power shift. We already have this in place. It's dedicated to the high call volume times and day a week. We're going to add to that with our school resource officers that'll be available to us in the summer, hopefully allowing us to get quicker to the calls and hopefully have a reduction in overtime based on that effort right there. And another thing we're doing, we're revamping and re-energizing our community policing program, including our neighborhood watch. So we're working really hard to reinvent that program. And my next slide, this right here, this is something we're really proud of. Captain Platzer and I have put this program together. It's a new CompStat crime analysis program. Lieutenant Wood has been tasked with this particular. I know this is difficult to read, but I wanted you to see not only these particular items are going to be distributed to our officers at briefing, so they have an idea what crimes they're seeing, what type of people we're looking for, but also some patterns that we can start to put together. This is a piece of technology. It's been out there for a long time, but it's difficult to get out of our software at times. We're at that point now where we can do that. So this is going to be a really nice piece that we can give to our officers. But the second part of that is, you heard me talk about reinventing our Neighborhood Watch program. We're going to be taking these type of documents to our Neighborhood Watch so our Neighborhood Watch people know what's going in and around them. We think that's really important that they know what's going on in their neighborhood. This is something I wasn't sure if you guys are aware of. I wanted to bring it to your attention. We're working on our Port Huron Police Department webpage. We have a crime mapping tool. I don't know if you have that or the citizens listening to this broadcast. If you go to porthuronpolice.org, there is a crime mapping piece on there. It can do all kinds of things. You can section off areas, you can put geofences out there, you can put different crimes in there and look and see what's going on in your neighborhood. That's out there at no cost to anybody that wants to utilize that piece. This is the piece I wanted to introduce to you. This is something new. In years past, you've seen us give you hard copies of our annual report. And we'd print a couple hundred of them. It cost quite a bit of money, and a lot of people would look at them and they go in a drawer. We did something different this year. We tried to be creative. We tried to use technology. And our DARE officer, who's also our social media person and now our digital media person, put together this annual report. Now this was just finished recently, so there's no hyperlinks on here. I can't necessarily show it to you. But what I want to do is I want to invite you to go out to porthuronpolice.org and click on the link for our digital annual report. This report, each page has multiple videos on it. Message from myself, a message from the captain, a message from several police officers throughout the department that bring you up to speed on what's going on in your police department. This is really cool, and Pat did a fantastic job. I'm really proud of this particular annual report that you will see. We also have the statistics that I just gave you are also out there that you can take a look at if you'd like. That's really the end of my presentation. I wanted to make it brief. I want to be respectful of your time. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, very nice report. Is there anyone on council that has any questions or comments for the chief?
Only comment I have is a very good job, and I will be going online to check it out, the annual report, because I did throw mine in the trash last year. No, this is a joke.
You're not the, well, people did, and we think this was
No,
a
I
great
keep it.
vehicle.
No, I
Please
just put it.
Please give us feedback. It's our first year. I would love to hear from you. Anybody else? I'd love to know how it looks.
No, that was a bad joke. No, but I think that is very innovative of you,
Yep.
and I like the approach, and I have to commend you, our officers, about the decrease across the board, and most of the crime wave it's showing that you guys are proof that you're doing a good job, and that's probably why you got that award tonight on top of that. So thank you so much for all what you do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Mayor Rep, since he asked for the comment, I totally agree. I like the new concept of going on the email and getting that. I don't need a glossy calendar or catalog to show me the progress you're making, so 2 thumbs up, so thank you.
It's a good idea, really good idea. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes.
I just want to say to Chief Baker, last meeting, we heard from Chief Main Guy for our fire department, and now tonight we've heard from Chief Baker. These 2 individuals picked up in July the leadership roles in both those departments, and not only did they not miss a beat, but they have really gained a lot of ground both in the fire department and in the police department with a lot of transition and improvements and some things that need to be done. And so I applaud them on really just running the ball forward in this last year. So we have a deep talent bench in each department, and so I just applaud you guys on the easiest hire I ever had to make.
Very good. We will move on to the third presentation.
Jim White, Port Huron Host Lions Club, will present matching grant funds to the City of Port Huron Recreation Department for the purchase and installation of inclusive playground equipment at Palmer Park.
Mayor and City Council, I have with us today the Port Huron Lions Club, and I wanted to take an opportunity to thank them publicly. Before the meeting here today, they presented us with a check for $3,000 from their club, and it was for the Palmer Park type track that we got a grant from Disney, and they are donating $3,000 to go towards some of the little buildings, some of the features that we want to do, some of the visually impaired features and hearing impaired features that we want to do throughout the type track. I just want to thank them for, they're always giving continuous support to the city of Port Huron, you know, at Pine Grove Park and in the gazebo, and we partner up with them at McMorran for the Oktoberfest. And with me today, I have Jim White, who's the president. I'm going to let him say a few words, but I also like to thank Dale and Don and John and Wayne's here with us, and Phyllis and Carol and Orville's in the back there. So I'd like to thank him as well. And thank you to the Lions Club for always their continuous support, not only to the rec department, but to the city of Port Huron. I'm going to let Jim White say a couple words.
Well, we appreciate everything that Parks and Recreation is doing. When we first heard about this project, we were very excited because of the programs for the visually and hearing handicap. So we jumped on board and wanted to help out. We also appreciate what the city has done with us, trying to build up the Oktoberfest and every other function that we do. We'd like to remind everybody that White Cane Days are coming up at the end of this month. Anita, I'll be waiting for you outside Walmart. We also have cans throughout the area that we've placed. If you see that white can, Carol, come on.
Show us a
See one of
sample.
these?
Yeah.
Oh, show us a sample.
This one's almost full, so you'll see these around different stores, restaurants throughout the area. We greatly appreciate it. All goes to our White Cane programs. And anybody interested in joining, please give us a call, and we'd be happy to have you. Or you go online to Lions International, they'll give you your closest club available. But we have two clubs here in town. We're Port Huron Host Lions, 98 years old. We'll be 100 years old in 2 years. We're actually going to plan a big party for that. So we appreciate the city and everything you do, and that's our support to you.
Thank you. We appreciate your contribution and to everything that you do for the community. Thank you very much. Now's the time to move on to public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the city council on any item either on the agenda or under our control, you have 4 minutes if you just come up and give us your name.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Arnold Kuntz. I'm the Executive Director of the Blue Water Area Rescue Mission at 1920 24th Street in Port Huron. And tonight I would like to speak on this evening's agenda under ordinances, item number 4. I would like to speak in support of this. The Blue Water Area Rescue Mission is growing, and we are doing our best to provide quality programming to the individuals who are coming through our doors and attempting to change their life for the better. This growth spurt that we're seeing is not due, in fact, to a larger number of people coming to our community, but it's a number of people knowing that there's resources out there, there's programming out there, that they can receive help for the vocational, for the educational, and also for getting back on track and getting help with substance abuse. So I am fully in favor of this, and I hope you are too, because it is a good thing for our community. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the city council this evening? If they'd come forward and give us their name, you have 4 minutes.
My name is Alex Mackin. I live at 1703 16th Street. I left off last week talking about communicating. The last hand signal is point of process. That's what I represent. Originally, I came here to complain about lawnmower fascism. And the more I come here, the more I see that this is a really frustrating situation, and I don't know if y'all are equipped to deal with it. I come to my municipality, which does a good job of presenting itself as a relatively neutral, non-political service provider, and every time I find that it's anything but that. Just the fact that your prayer in here isn't broadcast feels suspect. It's just weird. There's like 60 people that watch the thing on YouTube. That's like less than 1% of the people that live in this town. Y'all do a good job of stringing Christmas lights up on things that already look good, while entirely ignoring some of the serious life quality and basic societal structure issues that lead me to believe that your foundational understandings and your political actions do not lend themselves to this forum,
but more to the popularity contest that put you all in those seats. In the face of a changing world, that political structure from 100 years ago, it can't be rebuffed by some corporation named Code360.com. We can't just pay for leadership. You can't, it doesn't work that way. I have like super anxiety about just being here. I'm super stressed. It freaks me out just talking in front of people. Having adequate mechanisms for recourse in the face of all the errors that are put on, the shifting sands of the shifting labels and concentrations of the monopoly of force and the reinforcement of the police state narrative. I think it's cool wherever he is. I thought it was cool whatever he was talking. Whatever you're talking about. It seems like we're heading in a good direction. I've had some really bad experiences in this town in the past. I've heard really bad stories about people being abused and harassed. I bet it scares everybody. You're riding your bike down the street. I'm turning left, and next thing you know, there's like a cop car behind you, and they're saying, "Get off the road! Get off the road!" And they're like banging on their window, like, "Listen to me on everything I say." Doesn't make sense. I have an MDOT pamphlet that says that there's a way that you're supposed to ride on the road. And okay, so what brings me here is there's real things that are important in this town. Things that we need. Things that we need on the south side. We need not be billed 3 times for water. That's taxes. That's our bills. And then the block grants and stuff that trickles down. We pay for it over and over and over. We need representatives that support the forum as a forum. And if y'all aren't equipped to do that, you need to help us facilitate making a better forum. And creating solutions that don't need to be enforced with a gun.
Mr. Macomb, your
Like the guy
your
coming to my
4
house
minutes is
tomorrow.
up.
Yep, and we need bike lanes. And we need a sidewalk to the post office. We need a sidewalk to the post office, and we need bike lanes. Before we need to make downtown look great, we need to be able to go where we gotta go and get there safe. And the bus needs to run on Sundays, because we gotta get there every day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the council this evening? You can come forward with your name, and you have 4 minutes. Seeing no one else, I'll declare public comment closed. We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Lamb. Take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We have a couple of items on the consent agenda. Authorize the City of Port Huron Parks and Rec Department to execute and submit a letter of intent to the Build It with Kaboom for consideration of a playground grant up to $100,000 in value of playground equipment to be installed at Optimus Park, and if selected, to authorize the Parks and Recreation Director to execute the required community partner playground agreement as provided within 3 days of notification of grant award. Authorizing the request from the City of Port Huron Recreation Department to the DNR for an extension until January 1, 2019, to complete improvements along a designated section of the Black River Public Walkway in accordance with the previously approved Recreation Passport Grant, and approve the reappointment of Irene Michaels and Patricia Merkel to the Sister City Commission, their terms to expire April 12, 2021. We will then go to, from the City Manager, number 1.
Accepting the bid from Murray Underground Systems Incorporated in the amount of $885,039.16 for the Roselawn Court Area Street Reconstruction Project.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Harris. Is there discussion?
Yes, Mayor Rep.
Yes.
I believe this is a budgeted item.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mayor Rep,
Councilmember Harris.
I just wanted to congratulate the department on the bids and stuff. It's nice to see more than one bid. We had several bids, and unbelievably, they were all relatively close for this time, so there's a lot of people out there having trouble getting contractors, and we've done a pretty good job, so I think it's a big plus for the city. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to resolutions. Number 1, please.
Authorizing 10 payments.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Archibald, is there a second?
Support?
Councilmember Lamb. Any discussion? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2, please.
Approving and authorizing the submission to the Michigan Department of Treasury an application for waiver and plan defined benefit pension retirement systems.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Support?
Councilmember Archibald, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Ashford. Mr. Freed, could you perhaps, for the audience, give a little explanation of what this is exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have before you, I'm going to talk about it in 2 parts. One, the process that we have now where we have to report to Treasury. There's 2 things I'm very proud of in my career. This is one of them, the fact of helping a statewide effort, working with our legislature in the governor's office, in the state treasurer, to draft legislation, to really bring light to the issue of unfunded liabilities. The reason why the unfunded liabilities grew across the state is because nobody really knew about it. You didn't have to report them in your audit, both the pension and the healthcare liability. So this was kind of a silent monster in all the municipalities across the state that kind of grew, and no one knew about it. And so this reporting mechanism, where we will now report our unfunded liabilities, under Gadsby rules, we began reporting the pension liability 3 years ago, and under the Gadsby Rule 61 this year, we are now reporting our OPEB liability. Was it Gadsby 68 or 61? 68. Rule 68, we are now reporting our health care. So now we report our pension and our OPEB liability in our annual audit, which drastically changes the net position of the community when your assets and your liabilities are now factoring your actual liabilities. This has been done across the state. So now this reporting mechanism that Treasury has implemented because of the legislative changes that happened in December of last year that I testified before the House and Senate on numerous occasions. So I'm proud of this. I think this is going to be this month is Open Government Month. And this is going to really open the doors for people of our great state to actually see what's going on in some municipalities across the state. The second thing I am most proud of is that the city of Port Huron was proactive and did not sit idly by. While other communities are now just beginning to come to light of what the challenges they actually face, 4 years ago, we took this challenge head on. And you will see in our plan of action that we have submitted, it represents a whole collective group of efforts. First and foremost, we reduced general fund operating by more than $3 million and diverted that money towards the unfunded liabilities. In our report, in our MERS reports, the citizens of Port Huron can see that we have paid more than $1 million of additional payments into our unfunded liabilities in the means of $500,000 in lump sums for the last 2 years. So not only do we reduce the cost of government by working together, but we took those savings and put them to pay down our unfunded liabilities. For every dollar we pay down this debt today, that's $2 our children will have to build their own future. But it wasn't just that. It was the shared sacrifice of our employees. You will see that a large portion of our plan accounts for bridging down our pension benefits. Once again, our employees have sacrificed to cut their pension future benefits. So the benefits they've already earned are protected, but moving forward, the pension benefit is not nearly as rich. It drops from 2.5 to 2. That's a significant sacrifice of our employees. In addition to the reduction in pension benefits going forward, they also froze how much overtime can go into their final average compensation. It used to be uncapped. Now it's capped at 100 hours. To put that in perspective, the average police and firefighter works between 300 and 400 hours of overtime a year. Only 100 hours will go into their retirement. That's a significant sacrifice from our public safety, our police officers, and our firefighters. On top of that, they've taken reduction in health care benefits. They're now paying even higher copays and deductibles for prescriptions and their health care cost. So you have the reduction in stagnant wages. So you have stagnant wages, you have higher costs into their pension contribution, lower pension benefits, and higher costs for health care. This collective approach has provided a path forward to balance budgets for the next 10 years. This is the first time as city manager I can put forth a budget pro forma that shows us having balanced budgets for 10 years. But in addition to that, allowing us to pay down our unfunded liabilities, keep the promises we made to our retirees and our workers, while at the same time delivering essential services to our citizens. So this plan is a testament to the efforts we have made in the last 4 years. I have brought before this council some very difficult decisions, horrible decisions, to be quite frank, but they were necessary decisions. And history will be the judge of our deeds. So I'm very proud of this plan. I'm proud of the mechanism at the statewide level now for bringing this issue to light, to opening government's doors and books for true accountability. And I'm also proud that our employees, that Madam Mayor and Council, you led on this issue. While other communities kick the can down the road and still continue to deny the challenge we face, you aggressively took this issue head on. And because of that, Fitch just did our bond rating and gave us a very positive outlook for our bond rating going forward. So it's not just us who are saying this. We now have our bond rating agencies taking notice of the positive financial change. So I want to first and foremost thank the Citizen Support Huron for approving the public safety millage and Parks and Recreation millage that protected public services. I want to thank the firefighters, the police officers, the streets crews, the Parks and Recreations, the non-union employees, all our different collective bargaining groups who came to the table in good faith and shared in the sacrifice. And that can't be understated. So I'm very proud of those two efforts, but I'm very proud of this plan. We will submit this, a plan of, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I believe it was Ms. Ashford, you said a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the best way to put it. And so for the Citizens Port Huron, you can download this online, porthuron.org. We will put this on porthuron.org/open government so you can download it. All the accompanying documents, the MERS actuaries, our budgets, our CAFRs, will all supporting documentation that goes with this to validate our numbers and findings.
Thank you. Good job. Is there any discussion, questions?
Mayor Rupp?
Councilmember Warden.
I just have a couple questions on this the process of the submitting this request for a waiver, and I think it might fall into maybe legal counsel opinion. My two questions are, what possible ramifications or risks are there, to the city by submitting this request for a waiver, if there are any? And the second one is, it requires governmental approval here by the council to do it. Just wanted to know if there's any potential risks or ramifications as far as applying for this waiver or approving to apply for the waiver. Whether it gets granted is really the key, is if it gets granted to us, what does that mean to us?
Well, I wrote the law, so I'll take the question. First and foremost, the submission process is Treasury has now come out with standardized mechanisms for gauging apples to apples, meaning we are now comparing valuations across the state using the same assumptions and actuarial valuations, whether that be rate of return, mortality tables, all those mechanisms are in place. We've now submit this data to Treasury, and those are now required under GADSB and your CAFR. So in your F-65 report, which is our annual Treasury report, we report our unfunded liability through pension and OPEB. Treasury now looks at those, goes through and assesses all the communities, and then says which ones have an unfunded status. In the unfunded status, you must submit a plan of action to correct the action, or petition a waiver saying we have a plan already in place that gets us to funding mechanisms. We will submit this plan to Treasury. They will do a means test to test its viability to validate our assumptions and our pathway forward. Assuming that our pathway forward and our validation comes, they will grant us a waiver. For those communities who don't submit a plan and don't submit a waiver, it goes to an advisory board that reviews this and submits recommendations. At this point in the law, there is no teeth put into the law. There is no adverse action. So if a community doesn't submit a waiver, doesn't submit a plan, and doesn't submit the recommendations of the advisory board, right now there are no repercussions. We did not take the law that far. However, it would be very disgraceful for a community whose unfunded status to sit idly by, to not submit a plan, or not file a waiver to submit their plan of action already. So as of right now, there are no true ramifications, no withholding of state revenue sharing as if, or Act 51 funding. It is just simply submit the plan in good faith to bring light to the issue. But there are no actual ramifications in the law so far.
So if they grant our waiver, that's for how long and
We do this on an annual basis.
Annual basis?
Annual basis going forward. But even if they don't grant our waiver and we don't submit a plan, we really don't have to do any of this because there is no remedial action they can take against the city. However, we owe it to the citizens of Port Huron to submit a plan of how we're going to get out of this. And so it will be interesting to see communities across the state. Will they actually submit a plan? Will they actually submit a waiver? Because there are, typically in a law, there's ramifications for failure to comply. The legislature did not go that far in the process to take adverse effects on a municipality that didn't comply or submit a plan. So the law does not have the teeth for that.
Okay, just to further clarify is, if they grant us the waiver, is there anything of a higher test or scrutiny that they're requiring us to do other than just granting a waiver till next year?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I could just kind of piggyback off of that, Councilmember Warden, probably to make it a little bit more, I don't know if simpler, but the act is just really created to protect the local governments at the end of the day. It's a protection frame, you know, through all that work that they've done. James was included along with a lot of other folks on the team that went up there. You know, he wasn't the only one that testified. There was a team, because, you know, one person can make this happen. And there are about 6 or 7 communities were on the brink of bankruptcy, and they needed something in place to address this unfunded liability, and that's why it's so important. And we as Port Huron found ourselves in that position. So just think of, you know, not everybody has to do it because we don't have the same benefit systems as far as our retirement and pension, so we all don't have to make application to this. But the key here is municipal stability. This provides us the opportunity, and we are positioned through James' efforts and all the other ones that should be credited to this, to at least be assured that we won't be pushed over the edge as far as our unfunded liabilities are concerned. And when James mentioned about the this waiver and all they're doing is collecting data at the end of the day. So they haven't actually got that far to have a plan to it, because this only happened in December, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Okay, so there's more to come, you know, in terms of, you know, what this really looks like in a benefit-wise, but you can rest assured that it does kind of like put the brakes on the unfunded liability portion.
To add to that, it's really about identifying these challenges early on. To be frank, had the city of Port Huron not acted 4 years ago when we did, we would have gone to a point of no return where the systems would have collapsed. And that has happened in communities like Hamtramck, Detroit, and other communities across the state. And so what this Treasury, the intent of the legislation from Treasury is to put an early warning system in place before a community gets so far down the road, so far down in the death spiral, that the systems are simply collapsing. And we have about 13 communities in the state of Michigan that will collapse. And so the question is how do we prevent other communities from getting into that death spiral? And there's truth and power and knowledge. And getting this information out, making sure that whether it's CFOs and city managers from across the state are honest and forthright with the mayor and council. There's no real incentives to bring out this information to public because it forces communities to come to a harsh reality and make difficult decisions. And there's a political reality there. We didn't let politics get in the way of what was right in the city of Port Huron. Other communities may have not made those decisions. And so this is an early warning system to let communities know, hey, you have a problem. What are you doing to address this problem before it becomes too late? Because inaction and indecision is a decision. And inaction and indecision hurts pension beneficiaries, it hurts workers, but at the end of the day, it hurts the citizens with reduced services. And so this is about protecting our workers, protecting city services across the state through an early warning system, and that's what this data collection is all about.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
I just have one more thing. I just like to say, and again, being up here and seeing the last, at least since I've been on council, the bargaining and the negotiations that the unions brought forth, and again, to come to an agreement to help out the city. I think we've mentioned this before, but specifically right here, it's really nice to be able to put this in this, basically a few statements of a description that we get to submit into the state treasury, and they get to see what we've been doing. And that is an awful lot of thanks to the employee groups and the unions for coming up to the table to help out. So I want to thank them.
Any other comments from anyone? Yes, Councilmember Harris.
I guess my really comment is, I support this measure. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm pleased to hear James say that there is no finality in this. I mean, the legislator still has to make some moves for enforcement, but I think that by taking this action, we'll be ahead of most of the pack, because, a lot of people, if there's no penalty behind it, they don't jump in, but I think that we're doing the right thing, so thank you.
Well, I think that we should be very proud of our city manager's efforts in this behalf, and our employees for the sacrifices they have made, and for our residents for approving the millages, which helped us to get to this point, because certainly we would have been in a far worse situation. So there's a lot of thanks to go around. We will take a vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to ordinances. Number 1, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 2 Administration, Article 3 Administrative Services of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of restructuring the Department of Public Safety into 2 departments, police and fire.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmembers Archibald and Lamb. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rapp,
Councilmember Harris.
I've given this a lot of thought since we talked about this at the initial reading and stuff, and I guess my reaction is not too much different from then, but I just wanted to state that, this action for this public safety officer, which was brought into the position by this city council, and I think Chief Reeves did an excellent job of kind of organizing it and moving in a forward direction. And I guess the only thing I worry about now, and I still do, when I look out here in the audience and this thing here is, when I see the talent that we have, from Chief Baker to Chief Main Guy to Captain Platzer, just we have so many phenomenal people who could someday, if we had this position, be in a position to want or accept that position. I don't, that's probably the only reason that I won't be supporting it. I think it kind of puts a caps on things, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But I guess I just had to get my feelings out there. I've got a lot of respect for these officers, and I see some of them multitasking. I sit on the county emergency management situation, and my goodness, if you guys could see what these people contribute to this agency, you'd be astounded. And I am. And so this is, even if I vote no on this, it's still more of a support for our local agency heads, and they have nothing but my support. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any discussion on this item?
Mayor Up?
Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I clarified, for the first reading last meeting, for the first reading of the ordinances, 1804, 1805, and 1806, my comments and suggestion was really that, we're here as council members, and, that agenda packet, we got, usually we get it on a Thursday, we get it Thursday afternoon, and it was 110 pages of detailed information with about 24 to 27 items that I like to make sure I review and consider, to make sure we give good thought before it comes to us to make a decision on. And the only thing that with those 3 first reading of the ordinances, which is regarding the changes of the legal wording, changes of just some drafts of the ordinance changes for the 3 articles. It was 16 pages and, some legal ramifications on that. So I pretty much just wanted to make the suggestion that I'm glad with any ordinance that comes as a first reading, it comes to us and the public has a chance. And then, of course, the follow-up is always the next council meeting usually, where it's a second reading and enactment. And I wanted to make sure, I just put some notes down, but when I had a chance to review the details of changing some of the wording from the Director of Public Service or Public Safety Director to make it more specific for the fire chief, for the fire department and the police chief, and certain things in those 3 different articles, I've really found that it really clearly, I feel, gives, in the wording there gives the full, administration and control for the fire chief, for the fire department, and for the police chief, for the police department. And these guys, and that department and structure, really, they know they know it in and out, and I think it's, there isn't too many negative effects. I don't see any really negative effect of changing this and restructuring the wording of the ordinances back to completely reflect the 2 separate divisions, with the fire chief being able to delegate and organize their department. So I am in full support of that ordinance, of all 3 ordinances come up as far as the different wording. And the one that's before us right now, I just wanted to make sure that any time for me, I also need to look at, the wording and the fine print, because it's not just about looking out for the, close to 30,000 people of Port Huron that elected, me to be here as a representative, but also how does it affect the police department and their future and the fire department as well. And the time there, I just needed a little more time to digest and look it up. So I wanted to make sure that was clear, and I had nothing in last week's meeting was anything that I wanted to convey of me in contradicting anything about my knowledge, of course, of the police chief Reeves when he announced his departure back in July of 2017, and the appointment of Police Chief Baker and also Police Chief Dan Manguy at that press conference back in July of 2017. I was well aware, and then and now, full support of it. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I also want to let you know that I'm in full support of those draft wording changes that now that I've had a chance to review it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
No, just a comment. I'd just like to commend Councilmember Warden on that decision and hearing him publicly state, how you have to go back into it and read what's really before you, before you can make a wise decision, because that's what we're about, making decisions and make sure that we have the right documentation in front of us. And you certainly have broken that down to accept that in this fact. And the main thing you mentioned is that it happened, during the press conference when you gonna promote 2 people to, it's obvious that you're gonna have to revisit the policies, and Chief Reeves did a good job. It was heavy. Sometimes we think to work smarter and to get things that we have to put things together, but sometimes it doesn't always work, as we have been proven different here. And certainly Chief Manguy and Chief Baker had a springboard in which to be successful going forward, left by Chief Reeves. So, and they've done an absolute outstanding job. So thank you for
Thank you.
saying that. You're welcome.
Yep.
We will take the
Madam
vote.
Mayor, if I could, just for clarity, I just want to be clear tonight, we are not changing anything. The police and fire chief positions, the public safety position, hasn't existed since July. I promoted the police and fire chief per the charter to those positions. I don't want them to think that the vote tonight is to eliminate the public safety position. That's already been done. The vote tonight is simply to change the ordinance language and referral of powers to the decisions I already implemented in July of last year. So the fire chief, the police chief, those positions are already in place per the city charter. The public safety position was a new position and created a new cost as well. So by reducing the public safety position, we were able to elevate 2 chiefs up, eliminate that second layer of management that wasn't needed, and save about $180,000 a year. Also, this was not the first time at the last meeting that this information was brought to you. I want to remind the community that the mayor and council were briefed before I appointed the fire chief and police chief via phone or emails with me. And so this is something that's already been done. I just want to clarify that we are not technically eliminating the position. That change has already been made. I made that change in July. This is just catching the ordinances up to clarify the burn permits and all that.
Basically, all it is cleaning up the paperwork.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
No.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Mayor Rett.
Yes, on number 2, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 24, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of updating the chapter to coincide with the restructuring of the Department of Public Safety into 2 separate departments, police and fire.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb? I'm assuming most of our discussion took place in the first one, but if there's any other, we'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
No.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Mayor Rett.
Yes, and item 3.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 46, Traffic and Vehicles of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of updating the chapter to coincide with the restructuring of the Department of Public Safety into 2 separate departments, police and fire.
A motion, please?
So moved.
Support?
Councilmember Archibald, Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, and I'm assuming also there is no further discussion again, and we will take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
No.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Warden,
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald,
Yes.
Mayor Rett.
Yes. Item 4, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 1 in general, Section 52-5, definitions R through Z, definition of transitional housing, facility and/or homeless shelter, and Article 3, district regulations, Division 11, M1 Light Industrial District, Section 52-478, permitted uses after special approval of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of increasing the capacity of individuals allowed in a transitional housing facility and/or homeless shelter, and allowing new facilities and additions to facilities.
Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Lamb?
Madam Mayor, a quick explanation as David is out this evening.
Okay.
This is designed for the Blue Water Rescue Mission to allow them to increase their capacity from 20 to 30. Our current ordinance says you have to essentially shoehorn into whatever structure you find, you can't expand it. They're going to do an expansion in the plans to house more, work on some recovery issues with the addiction community and the recovery community. And so that is what this is designed for. If there's a model for how a rescue shelter should be run, it would be the Blue Water Rescue Mission. They have run a very clean operation, a very straightforward operation. We do not have problems down there. We do not have issues down there. They're really doing some life-changing work down there. And so we will support them both in our CDBG plan and also through this ordinance change to allow them to begin making additional plans. But this is for their expansion.
Is there any discussion?
Hey, Rep.
Councilmember Harris?
I first wanted to thank Reverend Coons for explaining, because my question was going to be who benefits from this. And I guess my only other question is, how are we going to fit another 30% of people in that building?
That's a question we'll address at the Planning Commission when they come in for their expansion report.
But I think it's a good, positive program, so thank you.
Yes. Councilmember Warden?
Yep, Mayor. Did this go through the Planning Commission process?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, if we had, the question, and maybe Councilmember Archibald is there, she sits on that commission. I just want to know if there was any feedback or any people that came and, I guess as far as had any real issues with this, because I just wanted to know.
Mayor Rep?
Yep.
Thanks.
There was no public comment on this. There was a great deal of discussion about expansion and new facilities. The only thing that came up, other than commending Reverend Kuntz for what a good job they do, is making sure that this would adhere to the original agreement the city had with them for the residency, and that we're not bringing people from outside. So that was the only concern. Other than that, there was no public comment, no public concern, and it did pass in the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rep. Thank you. I just want to say to Reverend Kuntz and his constant and continual care and effort and energy as you come before us year over year and help out in the community. Again, some of these, you can get an ordinance change to help facilitate that. I think it's a great thing. And again, as it's the first reading, again, I want to thank you.
Any other discussion?
No, I'd just like to comment that earlier last year in the chambers, it was a big debate about the number of individuals and what they should be called. And I would just like to say thanks to everyone who did come up, because we did listen to each other, because we got 30 individuals now, and I see now sober homes is in the ordinance. So we're listening to each other, and I think that's important.
We will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. Ordinance number 5.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 50 Waterways of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of modifying the operating schedule that governs the Military Street Bridge, 7th Street Bridge, and 10th Street Bridge.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Archibald, could we have an explanation about
Yes.
this one, please?
Madam Mayor, we don't actually control our drawbridge schedule. That's dictated to us by the United States Coast Guard. They recently issued a new, essentially NOTAM, an issuance of how they wanted the schedules to work. So this is just adjusting our ordinance to comply with the U.S. Coast Guard. They essentially dictate to us how it's going to go.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilmember Harris.
I guess the only question that I had in the language of it, it basically taught there was times during the year that we would call the St. Clair County Dispatch. And being that's an emergency call center, I wonder why that is listed under this ordinance as a resource.
I'll let Dan Main Guy speak to that, the emergency aspect of it, but I believe it's emergency water access, but we'll let Dan quickly address that.
Mayor and Council, Manager Freed. Mr. Harris, the reason that dispatch's number is listed is because it's staffed 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. So they maintain an emergency call-out list for all the various city departments. So if someone needed a bridge opening, they wouldn't have to try to call here after hours with no one to answer the phone. Dispatch would receive that call, and they would call the proper department to line up a bridge tender to have that bridge open. So that's why we're having the boaters call dispatch.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions for the chief?
Oh, I don't know if it's for Chief.
Okay. What was your question, Councilmember?
Mayor Rep, just on this, what I noticed is the changing, maybe a little explanation, this, it looks like the new wording for Military Street, 7th Street, and 10th Street from May 1st to October 31st is going to be where they're going to, I don't know if they're required to, but 7 days a week draw to be open on hour, half hour for one, and then quarter and three-quarter hour for the other, but from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I read through what was crossed off prior as far as the red line there. You know, of course, it looks like we had different times for the different bridges, so at least it's going to be all the same as far as the time frame. Are the bridges automatically going to go up even if it's 10 o'clock at night on the hour, half hour because of this, or is it only as needed? I think
we have our city engineer who's going to answer that.
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. In response to a permit application or permit
to update the city's operation of these bridges, because the city operates the bridges. We started negotiating with the Coast Guard about a year ago to change a discrepancy between the rules, the Code of Federal Regulations that govern these waterways and the city's policy, which are governed by our ordinances, in that we have a local policy that says for emergency purposes, we will not have two adjacent bridges open simultaneously. We learned from our Coast Guard contact that that is absolutely not allowed, that our local policy was not permitted under the CFR. The language that they came up with, and they got it passed under the CFR, was if we have every adjacent bridge open at quarter-hour difference, they would allow that. And that will allow us to accomplish our purpose, to not have two adjacent bridges open to boat traffic and closed to road traffic simultaneously, and we will meet the CFR rules. So that's why that change was made in the ordinances.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Warden?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes, that concludes our agenda. A couple of announcements. The City Council will meet in a closed session prior to our next meeting, Monday, April 23rd at 5:45 PM in Conference Room 408 pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act to discuss contract negotiations. The second announcement is the city routinely monitors our drinking water quality and annually provides to our customers the results through our Customer Confidence Report, known as the CCR. The CCR is available online at www.porthuron.org/remember this, 12wqr.pdf. But if you just go to the Port Huron site, I'm sure you will find it. And a link is printed on each water bill for convenience. The 2017 report is now available. To request a paper copy to be mailed to you, you can call 810-984-9763, and they will mail you a paper copy. Is there anything else to come before the council this evening?
Mayor, I'd just like to say over the weekend down at the Elger Harvey Center, the Lake Huron Medical Center, is it called? And also the NAACP, the local chapter, and SC4. And, I beg your pardon?
And us.
And the city.
I was going to say that. He always trying to get his stuff. Calm down. So anyway, in the city of Port Huron, they held a health fair for the community down there, and actually I went. It was very well represented by all those different groups. A lot of key information as far as health. I mean, I actually learned something, and they actually did an excellent job, and I'd just like to commend them and thank them for taking that opportunity for coming out there and providing that for the public.
It was a nice thing to do. I wasn't able to attend because I was still out of town.
Yeah, you were in Florida, I think, when you.
Yeah, I was.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Just would like to say to my daughter Lucy watching at home, hi. Had a baby while you were out of town, Pauline, or Mayor Rep.
You had it before. You didn't have it. Your
Oh,
wife
yeah, my
did.
wife had it, yes, but we
Oh,
yeah.
Lord. Before I
Yeah,
left.
so I'm back from my leave of absence.
Lucy probably turned the channels to, what's
Yeah,
that little movie?
she's
She
not
probably
watching it
on
anymore.
demand. Yeah.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Meeting adjourned.